The King, the Princess, and the Tinker by Kindt McKenzie, illustrated by William Lowe. Chapter 8. The Tinker and the General. Jack hurried to the General, who was now resting his head against the tree and weeping. There, Jack sympathized. What is the matter? The royal coach has crossed the river, the General sobbed. It is long gone, and we are not guarding the king. But why haven't the soldiers, too, crossed here at the ford? Jack asked politely, and handed his handkerchief to the General. Surely it is shallow enough. The General shook his head in despair. I know, he mourned, blowing his nose on Jack's handkerchief and blinking, but not so shallow that they will not get their new boots wet. And if that happens, they will be beheaded, for the money for the new boots came from the royal treasury. And the king cannot abide by the waste of the royal treasure. Oh, if only there were a bridge. Fresh tears came to the General's eyes. Jack thought for a moment. It will take too long to build a bridge. Then he said, but the matter can be settled more simply. The soldiers have only to take off their boots and stockings and carry them across the river. Then they can dry their feet in the grass on the other side and put their stockings and boots back on. They will have to march the double quick, though, to catch up with the royal coach. What a clever fellow you are! I am much obliged, cried the General, and he rubbed his tears away on his sleeve, and with scarcely a glance at Jack, gave the order at once. In no time, the soldiers were wading across the river carrying their boots. It took them a while to cross it, though, for the cool water felt so good to their feet, aching now from the stiffness of marching in new boots, that they dawdled and played and splashed. Some even sat down for a time, claiming to have been pushed. Princess Sweet Rosilla ran among them and was soon the wettest of all. But at last they were marching at the double quick along the other side of the river. The bedraggled princess was on Jack's shoulder once more and drying out quickly in the sun. So grateful was the General that he sought out Jack to ask him to walk beside him. It was not until that moment, with his eyes now free of tears, that the General noticed the princess on Jack's shoulder. Why, Sweet Rosilla, he cried, whatever are you doing here? The princess told him how she wanted to see the world, but had fallen off the roof of the royal coach. Especially she told him how Jack the Tinker had promised to take her to her father and get her home in time for her birthday party. The General was not sure the princess should be riding on the back of the Tinker. Do you know that you carry the princess on your shoulder? He asked Jack. The princess, Jack exclaimed. She did not say she was the princess, but she is the most polite and delightful child I have ever known. I have 7 children of my own, and I do love them dearly, but there is always room for another. I could not love Sweet Rosilla more if she were my own daughter. The General did not know what to say to this. They walked a little farther. Jack thought of the fine and shining world. The General thought of his own thoughts. The princess toyed with the flowers on Jack's hat. Suddenly, Sweet Rosilla exclaimed, Dear Jack, wherever did you get the crown? A crown? Jack asked. Oh, no, that's a broken pot I found in the dust of the road. It's a pretty thing, though, so I put it on my hat. The General stared at the crown and at the Princess Sweet Rosilla. His face turned white. He ordered his 5,000 foot soldiers to halt, then fell to his knees before Jack and cried, That is not only a crown, it is the king's own crown. I saw it once on a velvet pillow. Oh, your highness, wept the General, his forehead to the ground. Have mercy on me for not recognizing you. For years my eyes have been closed when I stood before you, and now I see you don't look anything like I thought you would. But one thing I do understand. For the first time, you really wish to see your kingdom and chose this way so that no one might know you. Forgive my carelessness in not knowing that you did not enter the coach. Forgive my carelessness in letting the soldiers fall so far behind the royal coach when I thought you to be in it. Either way, my head is at your feet. Take it off at once. Nay, said Jack, astonished by this speech. You are mistaken, my dear General. I am not the king, nor would I take off your head if I were. For what would I do with it, unconnected to your body like a cup like the cup of an old ladle broken from its handle. "Stand up, dear friend, and let us hasten to catch the royal coach, for you say this is the king's own crown as much as his own sweet daughter. We must return both at once." The general rose, wiped his tears from his eyes, and gave the order to march the double quick. Off they went, flying down the road, the general, the tinker, the princess, and the 5,000 foot soldiers, all in a single row, 5,003 long, stretching farther than the eye could see. Far, far they marched the double quick. So far that the tired princess, sweet Rosilla, fell asleep on Jack's shoulders. So far that the general had still more time to think. So far that Jack himself felt he had seen almost enough of the world in one day. But at last they found the king's coach. It had been stopped by the side of the road, for the liveryman had noticed that there were no foot soldiers behind it. The liveryman had told the royal coachman, and the coachman had stopped the coach, closed his eyes, and told the king. So angry was King John that he did not care who saw him. His royal beard flapping in the wind, he paced back and forth in front of the horses. But he was in a fury. His brow was black and his eyes glittered. The royal fire itself could not glow with such heat. 5,000 times 5,000 dolts, he roared, as the general, Jack, the princess, and all the rest came up to him. "What right have you to abandon your king in such a way? And now you are looking at me? I shall have you all beheaded." And that is the end of chapter 8.